This is Jeremy Windemuller, the trial manager here at Walters Gardens, and today we're going to talk about ornamental grass production. With ornamental grasses, they're divided into two groups. The first group are warm season grasses like Pennisetum and Miscanthus, and the other group are cool season grasses like Calamagrostis or Festuca. Cool season grasses are best planted in either the spring or the fall when the temperatures are naturally cooler. This is when they put the most growth on, and they don't put a lot of growth on during the hot summer months. Warm season grasses, on the other hand, are excellent for summer planting. You want to plant those in containers, preferably outdoors. We find that to be the best way to grow grasses, especially once it's after the frost date, under high light levels and in direct sun. We also recommend that if there are some shade grasses like jacon grass, those definitely need to be planted into a hoop house under 30% shade in the north, 55% shade in the south. We recommend to plant small plugs like a 72 count grass into a 1 gallon container in early to midsummer, and this is an example here of a 72 count in a 1 gallon container, and this is 10 weeks old, and this is planted in early June here in Michigan. Large plugs such as 20 count plugs are a great option for a 2 to 3 gallon program. Those can be planted in early summer and be grown outdoors, and you can have a finished container by the end of the summer for late summer sales in the fall, or sell it the following spring. They're also a great option for a quick turn 1 gallon crop, and it can finish a 1 gallon container in around 6 to 8 weeks. Now, the planting instructions are fairly simple for ornamental grasses. You want to make sure that you plant the crown even with the soil line in the container. You don't want to bury that crown or have it exposed too much either. As far as pH and EC levels go, you want a pH of around 5.8 to 6.5 with an EC level of 2.5 to 3.5 using the pour-through method. Growing temperatures average between 65 and 75 degrees for most grasses. Again, you can go slightly cooler with the cool season grasses, and you can go up to 85, 90 degrees. That's when a lot of the warm season grasses really push a lot of growth in the outdoor summer growing conditions. As far as moisture levels go, you want to maintain a consistent moisture level with ornamental grasses. You want to avoid overly dry conditions that can cause brown tips on the grass foliage, or overly wet conditions that can cause a lot of crown and root rots. Crown and root rots are the most problematic diseases with ornamental grasses. And again, if you do the right growing practices, if you set the crop up right, you're not going to have a problem with these. And as far as tips go for avoiding those crown and root rots, you want to make sure that you avoid prolonged wet conditions or dry periods. You want to make sure that the crop is spaced well, and you're using a good media that has good drainage to it. As far as feeding levels go, you want to feed with a rate of 75 to 125 parts per million with a constant liquid feed program. Otherwise, use a moderate level of controlled release fertilizer. As far as pests go, spider mites and thrips are the most common. Again, they don't tend to be too problematic, but under stressful conditions like overly dry conditions, spider mites, we've seen, can set into a crop pretty quickly. You want to make sure you're scouting on a regular basis and treat as necessary. Most ornamental grasses require a long vernalization to come into flower. We usually recommend at least a minimum of 12 weeks of temperatures below 40 degrees Fahrenheit to do this. As far as finish times go for most grasses, you can figure an average of 7 to 9 weeks for a 1 gallon container to finish off. And as a grower, my preferences are to grow ornamental grasses outdoors. We find that the plants tend to be fuller, more vigorous, and have better foliage color, especially things like the red switch grasses. They really need that direct sunlight to get the best color. As far as overwintering goes, there are a few main tips you want to follow to be successful with this. Once plants are dormant, you want to make sure that you trim them back down to about 2 to 3 inches in height. You want to place the pots nice and tight together and away from the edges of any cold frame. And then also you want to monitor the moisture levels. You want to avoid extremely dry or extremely wet conditions while overwintering. So monitor the humidity levels in the cold frame, vent as necessary, and you want to avoid a lot of drippage on the plant. Also, make sure that you're baiting liberally for mice and rodents. They can become a big problem in overwintering grasses. And then another thing to remember too is some grasses like Miscanthus and Pennisetum that might be more cold sensitive, we really recommend they should be overwintered in a minimally heated greenhouse at around 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Or if they're in a cold frame, give them extra protection with a frost blanket. Again, this is Jeremy Windemuller with Walters Gardens. We hope you find these tips on how to grow ornamental grasses helpful and that you can have an excellent crop in the coming season.